Hello and welcome to another episode of the Touchstones tapes, the podcast where you can explore, discover and keep connected with us as a museum while we're closed for redevelopment. You're with me, Katie, in the studio today.
And me, Rick in Rochdale. And Bryan is joining us down in the collection store. Hey there, Bryan.
Hello, Katie and Rick. I am in the store today and it's very busy because obviously we don't have a museum to work in at the minute because our building's being redeveloped. So all of our team is here at the collection store today, and it's really exciting to see everyone busy preparing to get things ready, get collections ready for the new building.
Amazing. And who have you got keeping you company, Bryan?
In the store today, we also are joined by two brilliant guests who are Greg Bond and Bushra Sultana from the Culture Co-op. The theme for this week is all about culture. We're going to learn more from Greg and Bushra, who are going to be telling us all about the exciting work they're developing for this project. And this project is actually led by a consortium of organisations, including Action Together, Rochdale Borough Council, Rochdale Borough Wide Housing, the Cooperative Group, and the charity Your Trust Rochdale. And they've all successfully bid for this funding, which has come from the Arts Council's Creative People and Places Fund. So it's a really exciting time to celebrate cooperation. And with that in mind as well, cooperation was actually founded in Rochdale. So this project is actually based on the original 1844 Rochdale cooperative principles. So they've used that to be inspired by this, and the project is all about creating cultural opportunities with and for neighbourhoods and communities in the borough. I am really looking forward to learning more about this project and the amazing things that local communities will get involved in Rochdale and the wider borough in the coming years, and the rich cultural experiences it will give residents for them to create culture on their own terms. So on our round table today, we are speaking to those involved in the development of this exciting and important project for Rochdale. So I'd like to introduce Greg Bond, who is the Director for Culture Co-op, and Bushra Sultana, who is the Creative Engagement Manager for Culture Co-op, and is also a local freelance artist, painter. Yes, that's right.
Yes, that's right.
How are you both today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Greg?
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for inviting us along.
You're welcome. So for each of these episodes, we've asked guests to bring along an object that relates to the theme. So the theme today is all about culture, and specifically about the Culture Co-op project. So I wondered if you both wanted to introduce with one of the objects you've selected for this episode.
Yeah, of course, gladly. Well, one of the objects we've brought along is actually a photo of a cooperative delivery wagon that was used here in the borough of Rochdale. And obviously, this being the birthplace of the cooperative movement within the Western world, we've taken a lot of influence from the cooperative movement in how we're delivering our Arts Council's Creative People and Places programme here.
So speaking of the co-op, Greg, could you tell us more about how the co-ops inspired the Culture Co-op programme?
Sure thing. So the Culture Co-op in itself is the name we've given to the Arts Council funded Creative People and Places programme for Rochdale. Now, Creative People and Places programmes are initiatives that were set up in the early 2010s as a means of bringing more arts and culture to areas where it's deemed as low engagement with the arts, or at least below the national average. Now, why taking a cooperative approach is actually quite useful with this kind of work is because often actually deciding what counts as arts and culture is an important part to expanding engagement. So we're actually wanting to take a lot of influence from the cooperative movement that started here in Rochdale Borough and was the first in the Western world, and actually help some of our local residents decide what counts as arts and culture, where do they want it to happen, and what kind of experiences do they want? So that's really why, whilst we're looking back for inspiration and we can take a lot from the rich heritage across the borough, we're also trying to look forward and try and build on the ideas of our current residents across the borough.
Great. So, Greg, you said that the project's really important, that it's counting what culture means to residents of the borough. What kind of things might we expect from this programme, and how are you going to go about that in terms of working with communities and injecting culture into areas where you said there's low engagement with the art?
Sure. So there's a slight contradiction at the beginning of this work that suggests that people are not engaging in arts and culture, whereas actually I think it's probably more accurate to say that we need to update our definition of what counts as art and culture. I'm not sure I've actually ever met anyone who doesn't engage in culture, but we do have to acknowledge that there are barriers to people accessing some of our more traditional arts and cultural venues across the borough. So really what we want to do is start engaging communities in a really down-to-earth, fun, non-pretentious way, and just bring people who are creative and understand that a lot of communities at the minute are struggling and they're under a lot of pressure, so maybe don't feel they have the time to discuss what they want to see in the arts and cultural landscape. And actually make people realise that it doesn't have to be that kind of big, scary, daunting prospect. There's actually culture all around that people are engaging with. I mean, one that we've been looking at recently is, whilst if you look at the town centre, and there's obviously signs of the kind of economic situation with lots of shut down shops, one shop that's always full in the town centre is the nail salon, and that's a perfect example of people engaging in culture, because there's lots of art and decoration, lots of different heritage that goes into those kind of activities. So that's a really good access point for actually starting these conversations around much bigger topics, is actually show people you're actually already doing it. You might not think you are, but this counts. So how can we build on this, and how can we use that as a springboard to think of how there might be more activities or events generated across the borough?
Great. It's really good to hear about how you're making use of like vacant spaces. I think that's really exciting. At Touchstones as well, we're going to be doing a lot of work currently whilst our building's closed for redevelopment, to connect with communities. And I know you was talking about, popping up in, or working with nail salons, for example. But Bushra, I was going to ask you, what kind of other activities might we expect to see happening across the borough? And how are those conversations, how could they turn into exciting projects that Greg's been talking about?
As a creative engagement manager, I've been going out mapping around the four boroughs and just looking at different areas, the need to reach areas, and what's happening around like Middleton, Hayward, Rochdale and the Pennines, and kind of like connecting with local artists, creatives, seeing what's happening around different studios, and what to expect is like maybe I'm hoping to do social events for creatives to come and meet and discuss ideas and just connect with each other. We're going to hopefully go out and do the radical pop-up art events in different areas around the borough. Just looking at creative ideas with local artists and trying to bring in sort of regional artists and international artists to make something amazing happen in Rochdale.
And Bushra, we've worked quite a lot together on projects in the community and connecting with people in lots of different ways. But what would you say are the things that are really important that you've noticed that, show that there's a real need for this work now in Rochdale, and, who this work's going to benefit and how this is going to sort of improve, communities and the community cohesion work, I guess, that will happen with that and bringing different cultures together? Why do you think it's important?
Well, I think it is really important because Rochdale has a diverse community. We have so many beautiful people that live in the borough. And just to connect with the community and have a community voice for once, and kind of really work with the diverse community to celebrate what we have in Rochdale and connect connect with different organisations around the borough to kind of celebrate these beautiful communities and diverse communities.
I think one thing that we've been really excited about having Bushra on the team is actually getting a better understanding of the experience of artists and creatives that already live in Rochdale, because I think, Bushra, I'm right in saying that you find that a lot of people often feel they have to maybe move away or don't get the opportunities in Rochdale that maybe they should be getting.
Yeah, I feel like, local artists have had to kind of exhibit, have studios, kind of move away from the borough because there's not a lot of opportunities for them to kind of exhibit their work or to do any work around the borough. So I think this programme would really kind of bring out the local artists, the creative people that are in Rochdale, and kind of expand on their ideas and projects that they've got. And
we've got a couple of Rochdale-based groups that we're hoping to connect with, that Bush has been hooking us up with, and we know that actually there is a lot of talent here in the borough. We've got groups like Breaking Barriers, Nomad Clan, as well as a lot of individual artists. We've got the Ebo Studios up in Littleborough, and I think what we're already noticing from our conversations is that artists all have quite similar thoughts. They want to see more exciting, sort of magical creations in different places across the borough. They want to push outside the normal locations. So when we talk about the Pennines, there's quite a lot happening in Littleborough, but I think, people are interested in doing more in Milne Row, connecting with some of the heritage that happens around there, as well as pushing into areas like Smallbridge and similarly elsewhere across the whole borough. So I think there is a real sort of shared desire there, and that's why it's really useful to make sure that as a first phase of our work, we're actually bringing in the people who have been doing this work for the last 5, 10 or more years and really have a really good understanding of our arts and cultural landscape, and start, as a cooperative should, actually start sharing power and decision making with people that have been working in the borough. So this isn't a kind of programme where you bring in an artistic director and they basically create something out of scratch and say how we're going to spend our funding. We're spending quite a lot of time working with our partners and building on that experience to think about where exactly we need to be doing our work. Who are the communities that we want to bring in as well? How are we going to create space for people to test out ideas, dream a bit, maybe even fail? I think that's going to be a big part of our whole process, is actually allowing that space for experimentation. So far, I think Bushra would agree, it's been really warming, really, actually, to see how many people buy in. It doesn't feel like it's something we're having to get going on our own, because everyone's really excited to get involved.
I think kind of being in like sort of 6-7 weeks into this job role, I think we've met some amazing artists so far, and it's only kind of such a short time. So there's a lot, and for me to celebrate, it's really important to celebrate and kind of know the local artists and what they're actually doing for this project.
It's really important as well. I really like the fact that it's, like you said, it's building on the existing work that's already happened and adding to that and enhancing that and working with local artists like you've identified, Bushra, that haven't maybe had that interaction with arts organisations or had that access to funding, but you was talking a lot about all of the different partners involved, the different groups and artists and organisations. But how do all of those groups come together? Like what kind of process is that where they sort of collaborate? How has that happened?
Well, I think so far we've been trying to think about how we can work with existing sort of infrastructure across the city. So that includes local service providers such as housing associations. It includes community networks from sort of more grassroots organisations such as Action Together or some faith groups. And then, of course, other arts organisations as well, because I think ultimately there's actually a sort of wider movement that's really advocating for the importance and value of both arts and culture as a way of not just sort of improving the arts scene, but actually improving people's lives on an individual and community level, because there's massive benefits in terms of economy. It brings in a lot of tourism visitors. There's lots to health. There's been a big movement towards this sort of creative health agenda, what used used to be known as sort of arts, health and well-being, and actually realising that whilst people are struggling to often access support with their mental health, engaging in arts can be a really good way of giving people an outlet for managing their own mental health. And also just helping people develop their own skills. So that's why I think as we're building this network, there's a lot of energy from maybe groups you wouldn't expect to actually connect with us. That includes public health, it includes housing associations, which I know Touchstones have done a lot of work in the past with. And actually, again, other arts organisations. I think we're all trying to find new areas, new sectors to connect with, and trying to do it in a way that's fluid and manageable and brings out the best in each other, and just trying to stay quite kind of open-minded, open-hearted, and just really open to the opportunity for collaboration, which again, sort of pulling it back, is why I think, the cooperative movement is really something for us to take as inspiration, whilst also thinking how can we bring in new ideas so it doesn't feel like a retrospective looking back at the past, and actually something that we use as a tool for looking toward the future.
It sounds so exciting. I'm really excited to be involved in the project. But I know that there are the consortium and the partners are involved in these culture co-op labs. Mm-hmm. So what happens in those meetings and those spaces?
Well, so far we've got Bushra out hassling people to make sure that they attend, but we're having some monthly workshop meetings, and we're basically, as I say, we bring together a diverse range of different delivery partners. In a year's time, we're hoping that actually these spaces will be filled a lot more with community representatives from across the borough. But I think you have to, at any kind of community engagement project, you have to start with the partners that the usual suspects, as they sometimes say, before actually going into community, so that we can establish where other people are seeing that where there might be some needs. So really at these monthly meetings, we've just been discussing our plans so far, but we're also trying to create space for new expertise. So we've invited the arts organisation Local to deliver a talk at the last workshop, along with the Cooperative College, who are going to think about how we assess our work, how we judge what we even deem as success being. And I think more and more these spaces are actually going to be a way of us all sharing learning rather than being directed by ourselves. At the same time, we want to have fun spaces, and I think there's a danger that you always discuss arts and culture in a kind of classroom environment, whereas actually we need to lead with creativity. So Bush is actually currently organising an event. I don't know if you wanted to say anything
so
about
I'm going to be organising my first social event, which will be in May, which I've mentioned before. So I will just invite people from different organisations, like artists, and it will just be an evening event, again, like for people to kind of discuss ideas and what they're doing and kind of what kind of work they do around the borough.
Yeah, and also a way of, a big thing that we're trying to tackle is the fact that some people feel that they can't access the arts and cultural scene. So we want to be able to create spaces where you do have professional artists, but we also open it up to people who are maybe a couple of steps behind and keen to enter the arts world. But one thing that we found from talking to Rochdale-based artists is actually they themselves don't really feel that there's much of a network or scene to begin with. Certainly not when you compare it with other quite big creative cities, as such as maybe Manchester's or Bristol or areas like this. So I think there's a real desire to actually build an infrastructure that supports artists. And if we're going to be supporting more community members and residents to join this world, we need to make sure it's a supportive, kind world that they're entering into, rather than, helping encourage community members to join an arts world that, like, quite frankly, can be quite a struggle. There's a lot of pressures on constantly trying to find funding opportunities. It can be quite an isolating existence as an artist, or at least it can feel that way when you're not part of a wider team. So we need to create a bit of that support network. I think there's other organisations who have similar ambitions. Great organisations like Cartwheel Arts or Theatre and Flow. They're all really keen to actually provide a thriving nurturing arts and cultural landscape where people feel that they can turn to other people for advice or to find new opportunities when they are maybe just a bit unsure of their next steps. So we do see that as important as our more planning strategic meetings, is actually just creating really fun, warm spaces where people can be together in a more informal capacity.
And a part of the programme is to support artists and kind of mentor up-and-coming artists.
But yeah, that's really great to be able to bring more opportunities and chances for people to network. Like, the event sounds really exciting, Bushra. I know you spoke a bit about, both of you, about some of the benefits of this work, like health and well-being, or, adding, creating a stronger sort of artistic and creative ecology for the borough. But what kind of things do you hope would be a really amazing outcome? I know that it's very built with communities and on their terms, but for this project and this programme, what kind of exciting things would you like to see happen that you've had conversations with already with people from the community?
I want to leave a legacy in Rochdale. That's my plan. I'd like to have something, maybe a building that is a culture co-op building that's created from this project. I have got my eye on a building, but we'll see about that.
Which building's that?
It's the old museum next to St Chad's Church.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like for that building to be the new art centre. So it would work with the town hall and obviously with Touchstones opening in 2 years, and that we work closely together. We're quite close, and that we just create this amazing art scene in Rochdale.
It'd be like a cultural golden triangle.
Yes.
That's really exciting though. But there's a real ambition for the project, isn't there? For it to, really change and shift things culturally, isn't it? It's not just about, here's a project, here's some creativity, see ya. It's very much about, what can we do together to make
leaving
change?
a legacy, yeah. And for it to run, after the project, be sustainable. And if, me and Greg find other work or we move on, that it's still there, and that'll be our project that we've started.
Yeah, and it's, we're quite realistic. It's easier said than done, but we've been quite broad with what opportunities we will create. So it could be anything from community-led festivals to pop-up kitchens, which I know is something Touchstones are keen on. And really, we've been quite flexible with how we're defining arts and culture. I think one thing that we need to embrace, though, is the fact that it is hard to make things sustainable within the arts world. And actually, a lot of very established groups are really struggling with finance. And we need to maybe think outside the box if we're going to have some community-led and ideally community-owned cultural assets that we produce from this programme. How's that actually going to work? And is there a way of doing it without just relying on a kind of 2 to 3 year funding cycle, which, whilst, is great in many ways, as soon as you suddenly lose funding, that can be actually quite dire for arts and cultural groups. So is there a way that we can work more with local businesses? Is there a way that we can maybe take a fresher look on what we mean by volunteering and think of it from more of a sort of mutual benefit system? So these are all kind of challenges that we want to work out with our delivery partners, with our community participants. And, I think there's going to be different solutions in every place that we work. And that's why we often talk about place-based work or working on a hyper-local scale, because we're trying to innovate solutions that only work within that very specific location. And we have to go into every other location we work in, not assuming that one thing is going to work, and just actually listen to people and get a good sense of the area.
So that kind of leads into my next question. I know you picked up on how Touchstones might work with the Culture Co-op. For example, the community kitchen plans and exciting ideas we have there, and also for our free-for-all community programme exhibition. But we've been asking all of our guests, as the building's currently closed, what kind of things, based on this conversation, would you like to see, or maybe, or it doesn't even have to be related to that, would you like to see in Touchstones when it reopens as a new sort of cultural hub for the borough?
I think Bushra has a lot of ideas for that.
I'd like to sort of see a recording studio, because I think there is a few recording studios, but I think like music events and performances, I think, because the arts has been amazing in the past couple of years at Touchstones, but kind of a bit more kind of like performance and music and theatre.
That's really exciting. I think we want to animate those spaces, don't we, and bring more life to it.
Yeah, and I think just going back to the food as well, I've heard a lot of exciting ideas from Touchstones about how we can actually represent sort of heritage through food. And I just think everyone you speak to, they always say the best ingredients community engagement is food, because it's the great leveller. It's something everyone can talk about and instantly engage with. So really keen to think how we can connect in that way.
That'd be really exciting. I think that's on the cards. Thanks both for coming on today. It's been really interesting to learn more about the Culture Co-op and all the exciting things that are, going to happen in Rochdale. Where can we find you both in Rochdale, and where can we find out more about the project?
Well, you can find out more about the project on the usual socials, and we're also based at the Fire Up co-working space, which is at the old fire station where the museum is, just next to Rochdale railway station. So feel free to drop by.
I will be there. Thank you both, and I will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What an amazing conversation with Bushra and Greg that was. It's really refreshing to hear how local artists are getting something given back to them within the local community. Because often with arts-funded projects, the money often goes to nationally recognised artists. So it's really exciting to know, and I'm really excited to hear about the exciting creative projects that will come off the back of this work. That's all from me in the collection store this month. Back to you guys in the studio.
What an episode. Thank you, Bryan, Greg and Bushra.
I love what Greg was saying about how culture can be everywhere, even in your nail salons in the high street.
I really liked what he said too about the importance of experimentation, trying things out, and it doesn't matter if things don't work out. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Touchstones tapes on whatever app you use to listen to your podcasts, and follow us on socials. We're on Instagram at Touchstones_Rochdale, and search for us on Facebook at Touchstones Rochdale.
That's it from us this week. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Audio Always who've helped us make this podcast. Bye.
Bye.